Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, The Best Ways to Maintain Your Website with Church360 Unite. My name is Peter Frank. I am the Senior Manager of Concordia Technology Solutions. My contact information is there on the screen. I always love talking with customers or people who are in the church, whether you're a customer or not, to find out how you are using technology in your ministry or find out ways that you can use technology to better serve the people of God and to serve his mission there in the church. I've been with our group here for about 6 years now here in Concordia Technology Solutions. I've been with the publishing house, our parent company, for a little over 11 years now, and Unite has been a big part of my career here. It's been a fantastic opportunity to work on this great church website builder. I've been doing church websites since I was about 15, so going on almost 20 years. Actually, it's even earlier than 15, so right about 20 years doing church website design. So this is fun for me to talk about. As I've become more involved on the marketing side of things within my role here, I've really come to love the strategy of a church website. So we're going to talk through that today. It's really our topic here is we'll show you how to update your website. I'll show you the tools within Church360 Unite. But really the reasons why are the key. The best ways to update it. It's not just the best ways in terms of time efficiency, but really what serves the best purpose of reaching people with your website. So that's what we're going to talk about today. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First off, I've got about 55 minutes prepared. I can always go over that. If I have to go under it, I will. We set aside 5 minutes for question and answers. Sometimes that's not enough. I used to set aside 10, but I'd always go over that. So we'll figure out exactly how much time at the end to save for question and answers if you ask me those throughout. And that's what I always ask. If you have a question for me, go ahead and put it in the chat. It'll show up in my queue there, and I'll be glancing over there throughout the presentation today. That'll give me an idea of how many I have waiting for me, how much time I need to set aside at the end for question and answers. So we are recording this. If you need to step away, go right ahead. This is a tool for you in your ministry. It is not the most important thing in your ministry. People are obviously the most important reason you're there, be able to connect people with the gospel. So if you get interrupted, if something else comes along that you need to take care of, we're recording it for you so you can watch it later on. If you are one of those who are watching it later on, thanks for joining us after the fact. The only thing that you're missing is the ability to answer live questions, but you can always ask me questions after the fact too using my contact information. All right, a little bit about us as an organization. Like I mentioned, I am the manager of Concordia Technology Solutions, and we are the church administration division of Concordia Publishing House. Our group here at the Publishing House hasn't always been known as Concordia Technology Solutions, but we have been producing software for churches since 1984. And so if you are one of those early adopters of church management software or something along those lines back in the 80s, I commend you for that. That was a bit behind or ahead of the game on technology. If you are just adding technology to your church, that's where the behind the times comes in. But I don't think I've found a church that is not doing something with software these days. So Church360 Unite, which we'll be talking about today, is kind of the latest iteration of what we are doing with church software here at Concordia Publishing House and Concordia Technology Solutions. It is part of our Church360 suite, which is that complete church management. So connected with Unite is Church360 Members, our online church management software. And the third component is Church360 Ledger. And those form that complete suite of doing just about everything you need from a management side for your church. Now, there are plenty of other products that you might need, like Service Builder. Lutheran Service Builder is one of our other products. That doesn't quite fit into church management, so that's why that's not here. But we're going to be talking specifically about Unite, and I may reference the other two today. So just a heads up on that. Now, Church360 Unite, as I mentioned, is a church website builder. That is first and foremost what it is, and that's really where our discussion is going to be today. But we often get asked the question, well, why do you call it Unite? That's a weird word. Well, that's because it's more than just a church website builder. It is your church website, of course, but it's also your blog, your member hub, your file sharing tool, your calendar, your master church calendar, as well as the place where you send mass emails. Now, we call it Unite because this one tool unites all of those communication tools into one product, one solution for your church. And so that's why we call it Church360 Unite. Now, a little bit about Unite that is somewhat unique in the marketplace. First off, all of our themes are mobile accessible, which is very common for websites. In fact, it's kind of the standard for websites these days, but not always for the inner tools that you might use for managing your site. And so allowing people to log in, view the church directory, connect and interact with each other, that's where that really comes into play. But then it also allows you to sync with your church management system, that's CHMS. And we have two great solutions that it syncs with, Church360 members, like I mentioned before, and Shepherd staff. We provide daily backups and we provide the support and training. And so both of those things are important for long-term maintenance. As you are continuing on your site, you may have changes with your staffing, with your volunteers. Just know that by using Unite, you've got that kind of solid foundation where you're not having to worry about maintaining the backups. You're not having to worry about training other people on the staff or providing answers to them. As people come and go, there's always our team here at CTS ready to help your church. So that's one of the things that we provide with Unite. Now, a little bit of one thing I do every time is I make a few assumptions. It's a little bit presumptuous of me, I know, but it helps me kind of formulate the information that I'm going to share. So I assume that you are at least familiar with church websites, but not an expert. You're probably not the type that are going out and training others on church websites if you're here today. I'm assuming you're somewhat new to Church360 Unite. You don't have to be a brand new person. You don't have to be, if you are a long-term Church360 Unite user, a lot of this will be familiar for you. But I'm at least assuming you're familiar with it and that you are not that expert. And finally, I'm also assuming you're extremely busy. Like I mentioned before, this is a tool for you, but it is not the most important thing you're going to do today. And so if you need to take time away for an interruption, go right ahead. That's why we're recording this. All right, so let's move forward here. I'm going to switch over here to this outline slide and kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about today. So throughout all of this, you are going to get an overview of Church360 Unite. And that's where I'm going to start at the beginning. I'm going to give you a quick view of the administration toolbar, how to set up your themes. We're not going to go into that in too much detail. It's kind of that prerequisite information you're going to need to know for everything else. So I'll breeze through that fairly quickly, but I will give you that overview. But then we're really going to get into these best ways to maintain your website. And I'll lay these out in just a moment. And like I mentioned at the very end, we're going to do a question and answer. So it's kind of a real peak where we'll be about 5 minutes or so on the overview, about 40 minutes on the rest of the best ways, and about 5 minutes at the end for question and answer. So the 5 things that we are going to do to show how to best maintain your website. First off, I'm going to show you how to set up your site for each core audience. So we're going to talk about what that means by core audience. You have more than one audience visiting your website, and it may be several. It may be 2 that you plan for, but I'll show you how to look at that from a different perspective as opposed to a one-size-fits-all solution. You'll look at setting up your site for these different audiences. Then we're going to talk about keeping each audience's homepage fresh. I put it in quotes like that because it's not necessarily your website's homepage, it's where your audience is going. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how to use your website for the master church calendar and the tools that are provided in Unite that will make that possible. We'll go in a little bit into the reasons of why it's so important. We'll talk about how to utilize volunteers for maintaining certain pages. You could extend that and say using volunteers for everything on your website. And I'll show you some of the best practices for doing that. And finally, focusing on providing value, not just updates. It's one thing to update your website so that it's different. But if you're not doing that with the focus on value, well then all you're doing is updating your site, and people will just see that there are changes, but it's not valuable for them to come back. So let's go ahead and dig in. I'm going to switch gears here. There we go. All right, so this is what we call our Cornerstone Christian Church site. This is one of the demo themes that I have set up. It uses the module theme. And you can access this at module.360unite.com. This is just one of the 12 themes that we have available. Now I'm going to zoom in because I know it's a little hard to see when I'm zoomed at my screen size. So it'll be a little bit big for me. Hopefully it'll be just right for you. Now, one of the unique features of Unite is that every theme has the core components, but they're displayed separately. So if your theme doesn't look like this, the tools are there. It just may look a little bit different. And the first thing that you'll notice is the sign-in process. So this theme has a different kind of menu than most. So when I click menu, I have a sign-in at the very top center. Others are in the top right. Most of them I think are in the top right. This one's really unique, but I'm going to go ahead and sign in, and I'm signing in as an administrator. Now, I hope you can follow along, or if you want, just take notes. Just know that administrators get a different view than any other users, and you get access to everything. And that, when I say everything, I mean everything. Every single page, every single tool, you get it all. So a few things in the beginning to talk about. First off, under settings, this is stuff that you set up once and then only update once in a while. So you can set up information about your church that'll flow over into your different pages. You can set up your different calendars and change the colors if you want. Those things are not, you may change your calendars more frequently than anything else in this section, but you're not going to change them that often, maybe once a year, or only as new things are really added. Your domain is where you set up your website address. So every site has a subdomain .360unite.com. So you might be, Christ Bakersville, and then .360unite.com, whatever you set up. But really what you want is for the best user experience to find your site, something like www.mychurch.com. And this gives you the tools to do that. And we can also help you out with that. That's one of the packages. Actually, it's in two of our packages that we offer. Then Google Analytics, which is your tool that helps you see how your website is doing. We make it really easy to set that up, and Google Analytics is completely free. And finally, down here is the integration with Shepherd Staff. So if you are using Shepherd Staff as your church management software, you can follow the directions there and set it up. We've got whole trainings on that, so I'm not going to get into that today. If you're using Church360 members as your church management software, that happens automatically as soon as your software consultant turns that on. So that's the settings. I breezed through that because that doesn't really impact what we're going to talk about today, except for the calendars a little bit. The next thing is themes. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly as well. The themes are the way your site looks outside of your own content. So you can see here there are a number of different themes, and within each theme there's a number of presets. So if I click on a theme, I get a selection of presets. The themes are all very different from one another. The presets are all very similar. So we are under the module theme, and we're using this color scheme here with that orange background. Now you can use the same module theme and do a blue background. It's going to look very similar. It's a different pattern in the background, obviously a different color, comes with different default fonts, but it's still the module theme. So to preview them, all you have to do is click and hold, and it'll pull them up, and it'll display things in a slightly different way. So that is what the presets are, and you can change your presets, you can change your themes at any time. You could also customize your theme to your own sort of preset by going over here to customize. And so like I said, we're already using orange. That's just what it looks like here. And so you've got some different ways of changing it, adding the background, adding a banner, or your logo, which is really what that is for. Different font defaults and all of that. So that is how you customize it. But if you really want to make your own theme, you can do that through our edit view, which we're not going to do today. That's advanced users. If you do not know how to do HTML and CSS and some of those more advanced coding languages like JavaScript, you don't really want to get into that. That's not worth your time to learn that. You're not going to get that much different. If you do that as a career, great. You will give you access to the code, but you don't need to worry about that. Now, sometimes you do need to add just a little bit of code, even if you don't know exactly what it means. And so we add this advanced area where you can add custom headers or custom scripts to your themes. And usually this is done when you want to add something from an outside site and you're not exactly sure how to fit it in there, and it gives you code. Our support team is happy to help you with that. This is where it goes, and you still get all the theme updates. If you make your own theme, you don't get the theme updates. The last thing on here that I want to talk about is styles. And we're not going to get into this in great detail today because, again, we have trainings on that elsewhere. But styles is a way for you to be very consistent with the styles on your site. It's allowing you to develop a style sheet. So if you ever have done anything with branding, you know that there are brand guidelines to follow. It's kind of like that. This is your website guidelines to follow. And so once you set that up the first time, you really don't have to maintain that unless you need a new type of style that is not available. So that's what styles is. That gets us through our overview of Unite, because these are those core things you set up at the beginning and then you don't touch them again. Now let's dig into the first best practice. In fact, I will go ahead and pull up the listing and we'll refer back to this several times. So set up your site for each core audience. All right, so in this section, we are going to be covering pages and then feeds, and we'll kind of go back and forth between those in the first section and the second section, and then we'll move into the third, which is calendars. But the first section is set up your site for each core audience, and that's where pages come into play. So up in the top left, you have your pages button, and when you click on that, you have active menu items and available menu items. Now, that might be a little confusing. Some people have confused that to be, well, these pages are live and these are drafts. And that's not exactly true. So what this is that this is your menu. Now, depending on what theme you have, many of our themes have that the menu right across the top of the page. We do, but we hide it here on this theme. So if you click menu, you can see all of those. Now, when you hover over them, you get a drop down. Keep that in mind. That's going to be important in just a few minutes. But this is your menu items, your active menu items. So what I mean when I say that the left-hand side is active menu, that's what shows up in your navigation. Whereas available menu items are things that are available to be added to your menu, but aren't necessarily in there. Now you set whether a page is live or not by clicking on it and making it either draft or publishing it. So all of these are published right now. If I take this worship times and click make draft, I get this little tag on here that says draft. And if I'm set to publish, it goes to publish. That's how you turn things on or off on your site. That's the important part to remember. So whether it is on the active or the available menu items, it can still be live or it can still be draft. If it's draft, then only administrators can see it. I think publishers can as too. We'll talk about roles in a little while, but only users of the site can see it. No visitors can see it. All right, so the goal is set up your site for each of your core audiences. So let's talk about that idea of core audiences for a second. With your website, you most often, or at least the people I talk to most often, think of it as a place for people to find out about my church, which automatically leads you to assume visitors or potential visitors even, not even people who have visited, but people who might visit. And so a lot of times the website is first and foremost focused on those new people. And you can see on our homepage, we have some of that already in place. So are you new to Cornerstone? Learn more. Interested in becoming a member? Join one of our new member classes. We have another one. Are you new to Cornerstone? All of that is super important, and I agree. And especially on the homepage, you want to make sure that you make new people, new potential visitors, feel welcome and know how to learn more about the church. You don't want them to have to dig because, frankly, people just won't dig down your site to find it. So that's the one core audience that you're focused on. But on the other hand, is your members. And it's really easy and good to use your website for your members' information. And so you can see here, new Bible study starting soon, Sunday school rally day. Here's the Bible study. Do you have stage fright? Share your faith. All of this is valuable more so to members than it is to visitors. There could be some for visitors. There's always a place to say, well, a visitor wants to see what's going on in the church. So you have this fine balance between members and potential visitors, and you're trying to weigh both of those. Now, that's broad categories, and that's probably more than enough that we can handle today. But I'll take it a step farther and say, yes, that's broad categories, but you could go narrower and say, all right, well, what about those people who have visited but are not members? What about those members who are new members and looking to get involved more? Or what about those members who are shut in and hoping to stay connected with the church? You can start breaking down your audiences into these smaller segments, and each ones have different needs. And if you were designing a website for them, you might do things differently depending on which audience that is. So we'll focus on those two big ones right now, and I think you can take these same ideas and apply them to all the small ones. So up under pages, you have what we said before was categories. I mentioned that to be sure to keep that in mind. So you have here, home, I'm new is a category with pages underneath, about us with pages underneath, connect, pages underneath, all of that. What you can do is you can set pages to be public or private. So for example, you'll already see here this members page says members only. We don't let you make your member directory public. That just doesn't make sense. You wouldn't want to put your entire list of members and their names and phone numbers and email addresses online. I'm sure your members don't want that. There's really no value to you in doing that, at least not online for the public. And that's where you can have members only pages. So then if you have information about your church directory, you may want to make that private. If you have information about your youth group, you may want to make that private. Not that there's not the potential for visitors to come in and see it and learn about your youth group, but that's probably not as relevant. It's not usually high schoolers who are going to church websites to look up information about the youth group. It's parents or adults who are visiting your website. And so as you think about that, you can start to put all these things together and, well, these are not so much for visitors, these are for members over here. So what I would recommend is keeping your public-facing site all relevant to potential visitors, and then building out a separate part of your site for your members. Now that may be creating a new category that you call members, and saying, all right, we're going to move our member directory down there. Actually, I'm going to move. Sometimes it can get a little confusing as you drag and drop, especially with that last one on there. So I'm going to put that there. Last one on the list, I should say. And then we're going to move the directory information in there. All right, so you have news and announcements, newsletter and resources. I'm going to put those down here too, because if for a potential visitor, everything is new. They've never been to your site before. They've never been to your church. It's all new to them. Oops, there we go. Sometimes, like I said, the drag and drop can be a little finicky, especially when you're going at the bottom. All right, let's make that private. Let's make that private. And we'll leave it like this. So about us, I'm new, serve, opportunities for service. Let's go ahead and put that under private as well. All right, what I'm going to do next is save it. I'll hit save changes. Pardon me, my eyes causing me some issues here. All right, save changes, close that. Now when I go to member menu, you can see I've got home, I'm new, about us, connect, serve, ministries, member, servants. There's a lot there. If I sign out, I'm now pretending to be just a visitor to the site because I'm not logged in. You have under your menu, home, I'm new, about us, connect, ministries, and sermons. That's it. Those two other sites, the service and the members, not sites, two other categories, service and members, have disappeared. And they've disappeared not because we set the category as private, but we set all the pages within it as private. So if they only had one, that was marked as private, such as youth ministries, you see that doesn't show up here, but the rest of the category does. And so you are able to structure your pages and your site map according to who your audience is. And categories are a great way to do that because you can name them and you don't have to worry about if those names are confusing to people who have never been to your church before, because only people who sign in can see them. And sign-ins are only done through invitations. And we'll look at that in a little while, but I want to make that clear. All right, so let me go ahead and sign back in. And all right, so that's the first way to make your website, to maintain your website, is to understand that there are different audiences and you can set it up differently. Now, the next thing is to keep your audience's homepage fresh. And we'll pull that back up here. So we already set up a homepage, or the homepage has been set up for us on this site. Oops, there we go. So you can see there that you've got your banners, you've got are you new to Cornerstone, all of that fun stuff. Maintaining that is an important part of maintaining your overall website, because if you have the same thing every time people come to your website, they're going to say, oh, I've already visited this, I know everything, it's not being updated, why do I stay here when there's no new information? So updating your homepage on a regular basis, once or twice a week at least, will let people know there's new information being shown. So if I go here to edit page, this takes us into what Church360 Unite has called edit mode. So editing the page allows me to go in and add new information. And it's really easy to do that. So I can go in here, this is set up as a table. And if I go into row and insert row before, I can copy and paste this. Oops. Let's see. I tested this all before and I did it just right. I'm using tables, which is not the best way to do it. There we go. We'll just do it like that. And then we'll go and insert a picture. And you can insert a picture by drag and dropping or searching for it on your computer. I'm going to go and I think it was VBS banner. Nope, that's not it. Maybe that was. Here we go. And I'll put in our VBS here. And then we'll say Vacation Bible School sign up. All right. And we'll just put in some copy there, text there. I can add another one, and you want it to kind of look consistent. All right. And by kind of consistent, I mean really consistent. That always adds a nice level to it. So that's how easy it is to add something in there. And if you're doing it with keeping in the audience in mind, it's generally pretty easy to figure out what to add in. A lot goes on at the church, but a lot is reoccurring, and you don't always have to put the recurring events on here. That's not what's important to potential visitors. The people that might come would be a change in routine, something like VBS or maybe Sunday school. You want those things front and center on your homepage. So that's your homepage for visitors, which is also your homepage for your site. But what about people who are members? What is their homepage? Now, you can't have different homepages for different people, but you can create a different destination that serves as the homepage for members. And so what I recommend is setting up a feed. Now, feeds are like blogs. They are syndicated content where you post a new post or you write a new post, and that always shows up at the top. And the newest is always at the top, and that's why it's syndicated, because the old stuff is down at the bottom or on a separate page that kind of hides in this paginating. So what I recommend, we have a page in here called News and Announcements. And when I go down to it, it's a blank page. It gives me some suggestions. I'm going to end up deleting this page. I'm just going to click on the page and click delete. And then I'm going to go here up to add a page, and I could add a blank page if I wanted to, but I'm going to add a feed page. So I'm going to say create page. I'm going to call that news and announcements. And I'm going to move that over here to members only, save changes, close out of here. See my page that I just deleted is gone. Under members page, go to news and announcements. And it says there are no posts for this feed yet. So this is where I can go and edit the page and put in a new post. And so I can do something like Vacation Bible School. And I have this post already written out here. Wow, that's hard to read. I wonder if there's a issue with this theme. I'll go ahead and just publish that. I wonder if there's an issue when it's in draft mode. Well, now my computer's slowing down. Let me see what's going on here. That's the fun part about doing this live, is that there's always something that goes wrong. We've been having issues with our internal communication tool today. All right, so news announcements. Well, that's fun. Oh, I forgot. I have to hit the create over on the far right. There we go. And then when I click on it, it takes me there. So having that looks much better than what I had before. The edit process for a post doesn't look fantastic, but this looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the page one more time, and then I'm going to go in and using what we call the WYSIWYG editor. You saw me use it on the other home page. We'll add a banner in here. Let me go ahead and upload, and we'll do blog post header. All right, so put this in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change it by double clicking on it. I can change the image values and just make that 100%. It'll make it look a little less skewed. And I'm just going to save this right now. And now I'll talk about it. So what I've done in a matter of minutes, and even with a little trouble, created an announcement with lots of details on VBS, but it's written for members, and that's what it'll say. It talks about adults and older students are encouraged to volunteer and sign up. And we could put more on there about sign up for VBS here and put a link to the sign up page. But what I really want to point out is that when a member is coming to your website, they're wanting news and announcements that's relevant for them. They're wanting the most up-to-date information. They don't need to know about the church's story when they've been a member for 10 years. They don't need to know who the staff is when they've been attending for weeks and weeks and months and months. They may have even been on the call committee that brought the pastor in. So they don't need to go there first. And so while you may not say this is your members homepage, although you could create a page that has members home on it or something like that, this would be the page that they would first visit because you are directing them there through your other communication. So if that's an email, you're linking them here, not to the home page. If it's an announcement, you're saying go visit our website /news to get the latest. You are not sending them directly to your homepage because that doesn't provide any value for them. Now I'm jumping ahead to the fifth point, but you want to provide them relevant information right when they get there. And that's what's great about a feed, is that you can then go in. If I go back to members and news and announcements and I click edit page, I can go and put a new post right above that. And so the latest information is always at the top. And so that's what I mean by a separate home page. It's not a home page by the appropriate or proper definition, but it's a home page in that it's the first page your members or a different audience visits. And you can have plenty of other audiences and you can have plenty of other home pages. It's the page you direct people to stay up to date, and you keep that content relevant to them. All right, so that's enough on my soapbox for that. Sometimes I feel like I get so excited about these that I start yelling, and that's probably not what you guys want to hear. All right, so the next one is make your website the master calendar. And this is a best practice because this is a big problem with many churches, is scheduling events, keeping up to date on everything. Even in the church office, it's hard to keep track of everybody's schedules, much less all the volunteer groups that are going on that are not led by church staff people. Well, that is where your website comes into play. Now, one of the great things, and in fact, I forget, there you go, under Connect. One of the great things about Church360 Unite is that it comes with a built-in calendar. And it's more than just a calendar, it is many calendars. Now, remember in settings I showed you before, under settings and calendars, you have a listing of calendars. Really, calendar is a collection of events, and your church calendar, your master calendar, is the collection of calendars and their events within. So if you are connected to your church management software like Church360 members, your birthdays and baptisms and confirmation anniversaries, wedding anniversaries will show up as separate calendars, pulling from that data and identifying this person is born on this day or was married on this day. But you can also do things like fellowship, and maybe we'll put that under purple, and worship, we can go a dark red, and education, green is a good one for education. And you want to start saying, all right, well, education is for everyone, fellowship is for everyone, and worship is for everyone. And so you're clicking on them and changing their permission levels. What that means is that you are making some calendars private and some calendars public, just like you're doing with your page. And so while the naming is a little bit different, that's because when you click on it, you can say nobody, users, or everyone. It's not just a publish or a draft mode or a private and a members only, or a private and a public. You've got a little bit more flexibility within your permissions. Now, as we get into talking about groups, which we'll get into in just a few moments, you can also have group calendars on here that can be managed or that have to be managed from within the group. So if you have a separate group like the Board of Elders, we'll use that as our example in a few minutes. The Board of Elders group would show up here, but you can't manage the calendar, only they can. All right, so let's stop with that train of thought, switch gears back over to calendars and click on events. So we don't have much here. Let me just do a quick refresh. While we refresh, I'm going to grab a drink of water. Pardon me. All right, there we go. So my calendars that are available to me now that I've refreshed, is education, fellowship, and worship. Now we don't have any of those on here right now, but let's go ahead and add a worship event. So we'll click on Sunday. We'll call this traditional worship. And we're going to add that to the worship calendar. I could add it to more than one calendar if I wanted. Put it in the sanctuary. Start June 3rd, start at 8 o'clock a.m. and June 3rd at 9 o'clock a.m. It repeats every single week on Sunday with no end. We'll put in a description, join us for worship. And then you can invite people to attend the event, and you can also invite them to get reminders of the event. So you could say 1 day before, 1 week before, and we'll create that event. Now, this may seem like any other event calendar, and it really is. There's not too much different about it. The big difference that I would say is that it's automatically tied in with your website. If you are using Google Calendars, which a lot of churches use, you can bring that over as a read-only import into Church360 Unite, but it doesn't tie in with your members like this does. So members can connect and comment and see who else is attending and see who has signed up. All of that they can do because they are members of your website. And that's where we're going to be going next, is getting other people involved. But now, as you add more and more events to your calendar, that becomes the master church calendar. There's all my traditional worships. And so there's none of that question on, well, which calendar is right? You always know, go to the website. That's what there. If it's not on the website, it's not right. That would be a good best practice to put in there. All right, next up we have using volunteers to maintain certain pages. Now, we talked about how you can set up private pages and public pages. Now, that is for people to view. But if you want to set up pages that only certain people can edit and they don't have to be you, the first thing you have to do is get your members involved. And I realize I set up a spreadsheet ahead of time and I didn't pull it up, so pardon me while I do that. Let me go up here to users first and show you what I'm talking about. And then I'll find my file as we are waiting for that to load. I apologize. I should have had that pulled up. So under your users, you can add people to your list. Now, there's this concept of people and this concept of users. People are people that are added to your church and show up in the directory. Users are people who are signing into your site. And you really want everybody in your church to sign up for your site. But I know that's not possible. That doesn't always happen. Some people still don't have email addresses. So you can add everyone from your church, but you don't have to make them all users on your site. So let me go over into get my file. Okay. So I'm not sure where this is going to pop open. Should be over on this screen. Yeah, good. All right. So I can go in and add people, and I can do on a one-to-one basis. I can say Peter Frank, peter.frank@cph.org. Those are the only things that are required: first name, last name, and email address. But if you want to do this in bulk, it takes a while to type it all in. So you can say import from CSV file. CSV is a type of spreadsheet, and you can upload it in there. And so it would have been smart if I had saved this on my desktop. Oh shoot, everything is going slow. Let me just do this. There we go. All right, so when I import this file, it's going to read through it. And all I had was a CSV file, a type of spreadsheet that shows all my first, last, and email addresses of all my people. And they are all added to the list. And it's a lengthy list. So I'll just click add. And it'll take a second because I'm adding a lot in here. Maybe I should have done a smaller list. But what it's doing is it's creating a person record for every single person in here. And again, this isn't really a one-time thing. I mean, if you have an influx of new members, you may want to use the spreadsheet. Otherwise, one-offs for people who are joining the church is the best way to go. But what you want to do is start to think of who should access what. Certainly, we want all members to access all members pages. And to do that, you just create them as a user. But you might want to have other people help with your website. So the example that we're going to use in a minute once this running is the Board of Elders. Now, the Board of Elders at my church kind of operates on their own. The secretary of the church doesn't get involved, that she's not sharing minutes or anything like that. So there's less involvement with the church office and more on the Board of Elders. All right, I'm sorry that's taking so long. I did way too long of a list. Again, this is a one-time process, and it does take a little while to run because it's creating all of these records. But I do apologize that it's taking so long to create those records. So we'll give it just another minute before we continue on. So, so yes, after you add all of these people, then you can begin to decide who should do what. Let me go and open up a new version of the site while I'm waiting for that to finish up. So under users, I would guess most of them have shown up here already. Yep, see. Under users, you can mark somebody as one of, I think it's 4 different options. Well, none doesn't really count. That's just not logged in. So a user may log in to Unite and see private pages and may participate in groups. Publishers can log into the site and edit any content. Designers can edit the content as well as the themes. And then administrators can manage themes and settings as well as users. And so they get to be the one who kind of controls the site. So all you have to do is select the person and pick which user or which role they have, in this case user, and send them the email. Now, if they don't have an email, it won't update them because they really don't have any way to invite them. But like there, Jacob Abbott doesn't have an email address, so he's still set to role of none. But Dave Abbott does, and so he's been invited as a user. So that means now he can sign in. Now, another cool thing is that you can create groups. Yeah, it's still running. So I'll go under pages, and let me show you what groups is. I'll add a page that's called groups, and I'll say Board of Elders. Then I'll click on it, and it'll take me to their group page. Now, in their group page, it says Board of Elders, discussion, events, members, edit this group, add summary under edit this group. Now, when I get in here, not only can I add the summary, or description, I can add the pages that I want. So maybe they want something like minutes. I can add that, and I can mark that as part of the navigation. Oops. I must not have clicked that. Got to update the group. So my Board of Elders can have minutes now. When I go to edit this group, I can also invite people to join. And so I can say, actually, this is not the place to join, under people. But I can say who sees what. So the Board of Elders, the leaders can see everything. The leaders can see the homepage. I'll put that under everybody. Leaders can see the discussion. All group members can see the events. All group members can see the minutes. And all group leaders can see the list of members. So I'll go ahead and update all that. Now, depending on who I am, I'll get a different view. So like under members, I can go in, because I'm an administrator, and say, all right, where's Rob Calloway? Oh, he's not in there yet. Well, Dave Abbott. We'll add Dave as a member. We'll click on Dave, and then we'll select him to be. Oops. Something's going on with my email. That's what's going on. That's being blocked. So here I can go. I can change role to promote group leader. It's going to email him from there. You can email using the mass email tool from within groups. But yeah, there it is. It was just going a little slow. So it did catch all of them. So then I can just click Dave and click email Dave, or email all, or email group leaders, any one of those. And it'll send an email to our servers, and we'll relay it onto their email address. We call that our email relay service. What I really want to point out, though, is that Dave, as a group leader now, when he logs in, he can edit the Board of Elders site, or their site within the site, so their homepage. And this gets back all the way to that second point again of saying, give each audience, or focus each audience on their homepage. So you create this kind of expectation that anywhere I go on the site is going to be tailored for my needs. And just like all other pages on here, you click edit page, and you've got your text block where you can put more stuff. So that's how groups work. There's a lot more that I could get into groups. If you have answers or questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and I'll provide answers for you at the end. All right, where did my, that's what happened this summer. All right, so we're going down to number 5. This closed on me. So set up your site for each core audience, check. Keep the attendees homepage fresh, check. Make your website the master calendar, check. Use volunteers for maintaining calendar page or certain pages, check. And finally, focus on value. So actually, there's one thing I do want to show with groups that I forgot. And this provides value as well. So let's go ahead and do this. So I am a member as the administrator of this Board of Elders. If I go to add an event to the calendar, so I go to events, and that's one thing I may not have touched on too much, is every group has their own calendar that feeds into the master calendar. So I can say, we meet Board of Elders meeting. In the conference room, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock on June 25th. I'll take off all day, every single week on Tuesday. And yeah. All right, so we have that event in there, and I can invite people, but they're only people who are in my group, and I can send those people reminders too. So we'll create the event. All right, I'll give it a second. There we go. So, oops, what did I do? Oh, I updated the date. Yeah, because I said it repeats every single Tuesday and I scheduled it for a Monday. That's why. Usually those things can be traced back to user error. Now, this is my Board of Elders meeting. It's on my Board of Elders calendar. I can see it. I can subscribe to it or opt in for it. Say I'm going to this event. Then I can add notifications or reminders, and I can set my own. So let's see. We'll go ahead and update this. And if I say I am going to this event, oops. Oh, it says I am going to this event. When I create the event, it means I'm going to it. I can say I'm not going. No, I was reading that wrong. I am going to this event, and then I can set the reminders in there as well. All right, but really what it comes down to, let's go back to the home page, is providing value to your audiences. So we'll jump back here. Focus on value, not just updates. You don't want to make updates just to make updates to your website. It's certainly tempting to do that. Everybody wants an updated website, but when you start looking backwards and you say, focus your site on each core audience, keep the audience's homepage finished, those are things that start to point towards different paths that you would take. It's easy to say, well, I've updated the website, therefore everybody go and look at it. It's not real effective to say that. And so as you're looking at providing value, you want to provide enough good content on your website that people come back to visit time and time again. So you don't want to just put updates. You might want to put pictures and stories. And if you do your newsletter, put that up there, but not in the same exact format. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. Let me go back here to my, too many things on the screen. All right, so if you're focusing on value, that means that the information provided has to mean something to the person who's visiting your site. So one of those things is the church directory. So let me jump back there real quick. Remember I mentioned that before, it would call members. If I click on members, there we go. It'll take me to my member directory where all those people I brought in are there. Now we didn't bring in any emails or phone numbers, so they're not listed. We didn't bring any photos, so those aren't showing. But this is something that is valuable to your members. They don't need that little paper book anymore. They can go to your website and learn more and reach the contact information. So that's valuable. They can also log into your website and go and edit their profile so that they can be up to date in the member directory. And that's as simple as going into the people directory, clicking edit my profile, and then you can go. Oops. There we go, that's a bit better. So then I can go and change my first and last name, my email, my phone number. I can even change my address in there. All right, we'll just update that. So I am just about out of time. The last thing I want to show you, and it doesn't quite fit in from the provide value, but it's getting there, is to go under activity and go to email and event log. And I say this because it doesn't provide a lot of activity or value for the average person, but for the administrators, it helps a lot. You can go to event log and see all the times people did anything to the people and households in Unite. So it's tracking all of the changes, who made them and when, and it'll track it for 90 days. So if somebody changes something that you didn't want to change, you don't know who it was, you can go back in here and look at it and see. So here are all the people I added. All right, that's a lot to cover. It's getting close to question and answer time. So if you have a question for me, go ahead and put it in. I'm going to jump back over to the PowerPoint. So just to recap, best ways to maintain your church website: set up your site for each target audience, your core audiences. Might just be visitor and member. You might get a little bit more specific than that. Keep the audience's homepage fresh. Obviously, your main audience is your visitors. That's why your homepage is set for that. keep that up to date by adding new content in, especially content that is pictures and specifically content that is relevant. Make your website the master calendar. Now, whether you do this through Google merging with Unite or do it all in Unite, that can be that one-stop shop for all things related to the church calendar. And it will be contextualized for the person so that I don't have to go and see something that's happening for a group that is not me. So maybe the Ladies Guild is meeting. Well, I don't need to see the Ladies Guild calendar. I'm not part of that group. So if it's a group, it won't show for me, or I can opt out of the calendar. Utilize volunteers or use volunteers to maintain certain pages of your site. This is where you can import a list of people, set their permissions, and let them run with it as far as you trust them, which may not be very far, or in some cases may be very far. Just remember that one of the things that Unite provides is that training and that initial support. So if something goes wrong, we can generally help you recover from it. So that is the fourth one. The last one is focus on value, not just updates. People will only come back to your website if they are getting value. And so for members, the member directory is very valuable. For visitors, the content you post on the page is very valuable. All of it helps in search engine optimization, but there's more than enough we can talk about here. We're not going to get into that. So those are your 5. All right, let's go ahead and talk about your free trial. If you have not already started using Church360 Unite, you can do that today at 360unite.com for a free 30-day trial. All the features will be accessible to you. The only restrictions are the number of admins and the amount of storage space. And finally, if you'd like to talk to me or a software consultant about this, you can email us at the emails listed or call us at the numbers listed. All right, well, I don't have any question and answers in the queue. So if you are in the middle of writing one, go ahead and send that. If you are not, here we go. Here's our first one from Judy. Thanks, Judy. If you enter events from 360 members, does it automatically show up in Unite? I love these easy ones because that is a resounding yes. Not only do the events show up in your calendar, let me go to the calendar real quick. Not only do the events show up, you can use the same calendars as you have in members on Unite, and they sync automatically. And you can choose which of those calendars show up in your master church calendar. So like I said before, if you have anniversaries or baptisms, nobody wants to know their name, you can put them in and have them, or you can see those come in there, but you can mark them as disabled. I forget where I was going with that. Yes, you can still see it. The events flow over and they still have those same calendars. What I was going to say, and the vice versa of that, is that the calendars from Unite and the events from Unite also flow back to members. So the same calendar event that you use for your worship attendance and members can be shown on your website for worship or for just worship, and encouraging people to attend. You update the dates or the times on each in one place, it'll update elsewhere. So I love that easy question. Yes, absolutely, they sync very well. Thank you for asking though, because it may not always be noticeable because we don't mention members with an app. We didn't want to confuse people with that, but yep, it does work. All right, well, we are just about out of time and I don't have any questions in the queue, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today. So thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate taking time out of your busy day. I love talking about Unite, and there's plenty more that we can talk about, but this gives you a nice overview. This hopefully gave you some strategies on how to use your website. When you're updating it, it's not just to make updates, but it's for a very specific strategy and purpose. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to me once again at peter.frank@cph.org or my phone number, which is listed there. But with that, I'm going to say thanks for coming and have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.